Good afternoon, and you're now kicking it with Brother Smalls, where we inform, uplift, elevate, and inspire. And we're here with someone who's done that for his entire career, and that would be no other than Nat Harris. He's an educator, he is a coach, he's a recruiter, he's an evaluator of talent. He's done so many different things. A clinical social worker, a guided imagery certified instructor. He's done so many things, and also I don't want to miss this. He is also an inductee of the Rochelle Sports Hall of Fame. Okay, and so I'm so glad that he's here with us, kicking it with Brother Smalls. I can't wait to get into it with Coach Nat Harris. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. It's this is kind of like a little long overdue, but fate is fate. And when we saw each other out there in front of Ward School, we just clicked, and it was a kind of a good feeling. So this is between you and I. This is really no surprise. This was something that was going to go down.
That's right.
From the past.
Right.
So no, I just it's like you and I. We just get in the car and now you don't even have to use your keys anymore. You just press the button and the car just starts. This is what we're doing right now. It's automatic.
That's it. That's it. Hey, Coach, what is guided imagery, and how do you use it? How do you use that in teaching or in coaching?
Good question. Well, obviously we all know about our senses and things like that, touch, smell, and what have you.
Yeah.
And basically this is how we, as a living thing, this is how we conduct ourselves in our environment. You have your sight and what have you and stuff like that. And basically any kind of imagery is basically any perception, any sensation that any one of the any one of the one of our senses picks up. So like, in other words, if I touch something that's hot, that the heat is going to be sensed to my body, and I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to move away from it. Sight, stuff like that. And a lot of times when I give classes, I always kind of ask a trick question. I always tell them, which one of the senses do they feel is the most important in survival? And most of the hands go up right away, and they go, well, sight or hearing. I said, well, slow down a second. You answered that question so quickly. Haven't you ever seen a blind person before? They go, the blind person is surviving. Sometimes blind person gets around better than you and I do. They go, oh, wow. So what about a person that can't hear? Don't they survive? They lip read or they go around, what happens? So I say, yeah, I can see you without really thinking, you automatically thought that sight, and because we kind of programmed that way. I said, but seriously think now, which one of the senses, if it was ever taken away, would really, and then they think and what have you, and get the correct answer, and the correct answer is touch. And this is why like astronauts and deep sea divers and what have you, a great part of their training is, they put you in water and put you, deep down or they put you in those anti-gravity booths and what have you, so that so if you ever think of yourself right now, you and I both sitting down, and we have the sensation of our clothes that we have on our face, and maybe the mustache on our face, and the seat beneath us and what have you. If you take any one of those things away, this is where, like, a lot of times people that torture other people, this is what they do. They take that away. So to answer your question though, the way we're programmed, the way we sense things, our body, our subconscious mind and what have you, and our conscious mind, it can't differentiate between what we would call reality and an image. So for example, a good example would be, this is why when you and I say you're reading a good book, and the book has maybe you come to a sad part in the book, all right, you're not really there in the action, but your touch that's being used, holding the page, your sight that's being used to read the words and what have you, starts to send all kind of messages and images to your head. And then it has physiological sensations. Sure. You may actually cry.
Sure.
You may actually get upset and what have you. So a small example to say that the way we perceive things has physical reactions to our body. So a guided imagery basically means that you take those images that your body's picking up and you learn to control it. So you control how you want to do it, how you want to see it. So an athlete that's say getting ready to do a high jump, he or she is going to go through the physical training, but the guided imagery training is going to be, they're going to see themselves jumping before they jump.
Got it.
They're going to go through all the mechanics of going to the bar, walking up to it, looking at it, maybe even possibly talking to it, whatever rituals they have. They're going to back up, get the angle that they want. And for hours and weeks and maybe even months before then, they have rehearsed this. And they have gone over it and over it and over it and over it and over it. And then when they do it, they basically just echo what they've been doing for weeks and months and what have you. And here's even a better example. You are doing right now as a host, as a parent, you are basically living out and doing what you had to have thought about doing consciously or subconsciously. In other words, the shirt that you have on right now, it's not like you said, okay, I got this one, I got the red one, I got the blue one. But if something had to happen in a microsecond to make you say, okay, I'm gonna put this shirt on today. I'm gonna comb my hair this way. And
it's purple. It's purple, coach. It's a purple
okay, all right, there you go.
It's a purple shirt. Hey, I wanted to you said something about touch. And I had the wife of a former player, Liza Tuck, her husband Chris Tuck.
Okay.
With us. And Liza Tuck, she goes by the moniker the muscle whisperer. But she talks about the importance of touch. And you said, with the senses, hey, touch is one of the most important.
Yeah, if not the.
My question to you is, with COVID-19 now, and we're not touching as much as we used to touch. Some of the what are the impacts of that?
Big time, probably more than we even think about. And this is why you look now, all of a sudden, it was almost like a full moon where you say, okay, wait, crime goes up, and certain types of people that have, mental issues or emotional issues begins to surface because you can't compensate doing something else, So the fact that you're not touching now, you got to somehow you got to detox by doing something,
Yeah, you got to find an outlet. You got to find an outlet.
And it's not surprising that you see a lot of this hate stuff going on now,
Touch is so important, Coach, and you touched so many lives over the years. You poured into so many young people over the years. When did you know that? Why coaching? And when did you know that you wanted to coach?
Good question. I come from a family where I was in the middle. And part of my responsibility when my parents weren't around was always take care of my two younger brothers and my sister. So I was always used to changing diapers, feeding, if I wanted to go out in the park and play ball, I had to make sure that the dishes were done, the garbage was taken out, and that I had changed the diapers and did what I had to do. So when the parents came home or whatever, they were away and they came back, they looked, they checked, okay, go, make sure you're home in 2 hours or whatever it is, And so I was kind of used to those kind of things, and basketball was basically always there. I had a park right across the street from my house where I literally lived at, but in order to play high level ball, I had to go about 3 or 4 blocks. And that area was next to the school that I went to.
Okay.
And basketball.
What school was that?
Basketball was basically this is in the South Bronx, and basketball was I look back with adult eyes now, and I kind of realized, boy, how lucky I was, because drugs were just coming into the area and stuff like that. And the older men that were really serious about it, when they saw that we were playing ball, they never bothered us. As a matter of fact, they would always come and watch us play and give us nicknames and almost teach us listen, you better go to school and do well, blah, blah, blah. It was almost like sometimes being in jail or an inmate, and the older inmate that knows better sees a young guy and a young guy has maybe a couple of years to serve, and if he or she don't do what they get to do, they can be there for life like he is.
Yeah.
And so he schools that person, listen, either going to be like me, or you're going to get out of here in 7 to 8 years if you just do what you got to do.
Coach, I had that experience. I had that same experience growing up in the Hollow, 361 Main Street.
Oh, yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. Sure.
I remember Fifi Razor, who one of the guys that taught me how to ball. You know, he had his issues, man. But I remember one time coming home from you know, practice actually, and he grabbed me by my shirt and said, "Omar, if you ever do this, I'll kill you."
Yeah.
And I gave him no indication that I was going that way.
Right.
But he loved me enough to say,
yeah, there you go.
Stay away from this.
There you go. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And what's funny about stuff like that is, like, now being older, sometimes age has nothing to do with it, but more wise, more cognizant of interactions and things that what people say to you. You look back now and go, oh, wow. And so you're looking back at that same action frame. And like I said, I always say, like, you know, you're putting gravy on it now. You're kind of like, wow. Like you said, okay.
No,
tastes good sometimes too, right?
You know, Coach, we know so much more now, you know. So I can tell you honestly, I can appreciate you and what you do.
Thank you, man.
Much more now as a parent, as an adult, going through the process. When I was playing, I didn't really. No. I wasn't. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't there. I wasn't there. Yeah. And you know, the guided imagery, the thing. I just wanted to give me the ball, and I just wasn't there. And so I was actually talking to Chauncey Hamlin and Rosh Young about this. And we come to the conclusion. I know for me, I just wasn't ready. I didn't understand at the time what you were trying to lay down. You know what I mean? And for me, you know, as an athlete, if I just would have kind of slowed down a little bit to kind of process, okay, what are you trying? I just didn't get it because I know that, you know, personally, I thought that my game I had a pretty strong game.
Yeah, so you were a little more. It's more funny. I think you talking about that. I always think and thought of you as being not something. You didn't fit the mold, you know, as everybody else. You were mature, and I didn't have to come at you. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things. If I look back in retrospect, you know, I think there was one of the questions, like, what would I do differently, or how do I see? You know, I think a mistake that I made is that I wanted so much for you all, and I knew what was needed, but being a little bit more mature and a little bit more wise and experienced in that kind of field, sometimes you got to show by an example. I know, for example, I guess I'm leading this way, a lot of times with my pupils, in order for them to understand that this is my teacher, and I would actually, this is back during the time when you were able to do this stuff, on Saturdays, I would take maybe 3 or 4 at a time. Imagine doing this now. And on Saturdays, I would take maybe 2 boys, 2 girls, get a letter from the parents saying you can come. I pick them up, I put them in my car, I drive them down to my mother's house. My mother would have like lunch ready, waiting for us. And I purposely would bring them into the building, not where I grew up at, because we later moved, but it was basically where my mother was living at now. And I said, now they're going to see where my mother lives at, and basically where I kind of lived my later part of my life when I was in the college. I would never really, it was almost like a hotel for me. I was in and out. So I didn't say that's where I grew up, but it was in the Bronx, 178th Street, Tremont Avenue. And the high-rise building was starting to change now. So when they got out that car, first of all, they had to see the neighborhood, and I wouldn't say anything to them, because I knew in their head they think I was going to drive them to a spot that's going to be big backyard and pool, whatever it is. And when they start seeing that, wait, we're leaving Westchester, and we're getting on the highway now. We driving, you know, it's not, and I didn't have to go far. My mother at the time was like maybe 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away on the Bronx River, you know. And then you get into the elevator and you see all the graffiti on the elevator, or maybe it might even smell like somebody, you know, had done urine, and they're looking, and then they get out. Now, of course, the apartment inside was clean and neat, and what have you, but it's very humble. And my mother had, you know, plates for all of them. I would let her know ahead of time how many kids were coming. you know, and they sit there. My mother has them laughing, and they would ask questions. How was I as a kid? She would tell them how she had to scold me. They'd be cracking up, man. You know, and then they get back in the car. We drive back. I have pupils now that are grown. You know, they always talk about that.
Yeah.
They always say, "Man, I can remember
Yeah.
when you put us in the car
Yeah.
and drove us down to the house."
Yeah.
And they knew the answer, but they asked me, "Why did you?" I said, "First of all, I want you to see the humble weird." I wasn't from New Rochelle, and not the New Rochelle. If you're born in New Rochelle, that you're going to automatically be living in a big time house. There's all kind of areas in New Rochelle. I said, but this is where I was from as your teacher. That's my mom's. And check it out. What surprised me too was that my mother was white. So that was the second thing that threw them. And they looking, and I would see them looking, and they were like, okay, this is a light-skinned woman, what have you? And she's talking like, you know, she got the lingo, she got the body language, and the way she's talking, and all the other people in the immediate area are of color, but they're looking at this woman, and I just see them just laughing about it, and then I kind of just throw it in a little bit, but you know, later on in conversation to teach them that not knowing about things, ignorance, and what have you, prejudice, all kinds of things weigh in. But when you start experiencing things, now it breaks all kind of rules, because you go, wait a second, man. Wait a second, wait, Mr. Harris, his mother's white. Wait, now you got to start like kind of throw it. It's like taking out a part of an equation, and now you got to divide by 2, or you got to divide by 5. You know, what do you do with that equation? Before you even get to that equal sign, you got to start doing all kinds of stuff to it. And to me, to get back to about you guys as players, I felt that I should have done more of that, where you experience, whether it's taking you down, or I think I was too verbal. As a matter of fact, I'll share something with you that most people don't know. One of my first, I won't mention the AD, because you know it can get too personal. But when he became the AD, one of my first evaluations was a critique in that, you know, and I took it personally. I said, man, first of all, you know, he said, you know, you talk too much to the players. They need to come for practice. And I'm trying to tell him, listen, you gotta understand something. I'm coming from Ward School, and I'm getting to the high school, and I'm hearing that they cut class, or this person did this, or this person, and that's, to me, is way more important than practice. You know, so he's coming in, walking back and forth, and I got guys sitting down, and I'm like getting on them. Hey, you're a basketball coach. You're not a. I said, well, you may not think I'm a counselor or a clinician, but in order for them to play well, they gotta feel good about themselves. And if I know that they're cutting, or if I know that they are not doing, and I just don't look at them completely.
Coach.
I'm not a coach, man.
Coach, you know, again, like it's almost like parenting. There's no really, there's no guidebook. There's no guidebook to parenting, right? We try our best. We try our best.
That's a small part of what we do.
To guide, right?
And
I wanted to ask you a question regarding the coaching, because you decided to coach, but there are so many dichotomies to coaching. There are so many, like, you talk about ups and downs, you talk about dealing with administration, dealing with parents, dealing with players, dealing with everything. I mean, it's one thing to kind of say, hey, I can, you know, coach X and O's. You can do that in your sleep, coach. But you had so much more to do. How did you deal with all of that?
Again, I think
deal with all the stuff, all the other, you know, all the inputs.
Well, I think working in the system, being at that time I was still in the classroom, I had kind of a nice reputation for myself, because I was at Mayflower School, which is right across the street from my own. It's now one of the dorms, what have you. And then when I went up to Ward, I always knew that people, and especially in the north end of New Rochelle, the parents going to look at me, and they automatically going to assume that I'm either the phys ed teacher or the custodian. So the trick bag was to say, okay, listen, any class that I teach, I'm going to make sure that when that kid goes home, they're going to be talking about stuff that's going to be way advanced. So, but the way I had set it up, though, we had the option of having departmentalized, in other words, where a kid would go to different teachers for different subjects, or I had what was called self-contained. I had them all day.
Mhm. Mhm.
Basically, being who I was and how I was, I got most of the time, as you would imagine, the hardcore boys. You know what I'm saying? And most of those boys were going to be hardcore white kids and hardcore kids of color.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I welcomed that because that was going to be my way of saying, you see that? If you do the proper things to these kids, they're not, you stereotyping them that they're going to be certain ways and do blah 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 because it's parent here and this and blah, blah, blah. It comes to the projects, blah blah blah. And my goal was to be from September to June. When June comes around and their reading level jumps up like maybe 2 years, and then math jumps up a year and a half, what have you. And guess what? They hardly ever go to the principal's office anymore. And they running errands and helping out maybe first grade kids and doing things. And all of a sudden now they're good enough for you to put on the basketball team where you wouldn't have put them on before because of behavior. All these things started clicking,
Yeah.
and the reputation started to take on, and all the stereotypes and all of the, started to break down and what have you. So I made sure that I built my reputation, not just being a basketball person, but I was also an academic person too. So when you came to my class, I hit you with stuff that I knew nobody else was doing. So when you left my class, Big O, you knew the noun, verbs, adjectives, adverbs.
Yeah.
You knew script. And at that time, script was starting to kind of fade. You didn't have to teach it anymore. Now it's like an endangered species. Kids they don't know. That's why kids don't know how to even hold a pen and how to write in ink. They use pencil for everything. So you were doing script, you were doing paragraph. I taught you how to walk up to the front of the classroom and give a speech, a talk. You know what I'm saying? And then when it came time for evaluations, you had an option. You either had to do a project, or the teacher or the assistant principal or the principal would come in and view you. And I said, this is the time where we're going to show off now. And by that time they came, man, the kids were in check, man. And I knew in their head, they'd be watching certain kids that had a crazy reputation the year before. And now this kid's standing in front of the room holding his project up, mouthing it. And
well, you had expectations. You right. Your expectations, you raised the expectations for them. And what happens every day and every weekend is that coaches, and I have to give it up for coaches because I'm a working parent, and for many coaches are working parents. They have families, they have other responsibilities, and kudos to all coaches. That's why I may have an opinion, but I keep my opinion to myself because you guys are out there spending the time with our children, and I really appreciate that. I want to ask you though,
go ahead.
How did you? Because you're talking about work, all the things that you just explained, that's work.
Yeah.
How did you do that? And you had a growing family.
Well, I was kind of lucky because I had a crazy supportive wife that loved basketball. And when I say crazy supportive, I mean, as a husband, when you're with a partner that is happy when you're happy, and is supportive and what have you. Plus, being a teacher herself, she was basically into watching kids grow, and she would know about kids, and she would know maybe this kid had an issue before, but now, these kids is 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and I got them in check. And, them calling you coach is like calling you mom and dad. It's like calling you Reverend so-and-so. I was telling this the other day. I said, man, when somebody calls you coach, that's one of the highest accolades greetings that somebody can give you.
I'm gonna always call you coach.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. But this is why in today's time, you see, and I'm always correcting them even at ward, and I have to correct the teachers a lot of times, being the dean. I go, no, wait, no, nobody's calling you by the first name. Maybe a custodian or secretary. I said, no. It's okay, Mr. Harris. No, it's not okay, man. We don't have a kid calling you by your first name. You're Mrs. So-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And then when they see that I'm firm and I'm not going to accept any detour, then, and I look at the kid and I go, does your mother go to work? Yeah, what is she? Whatever she does. And I go, well, if she's dealing with kids or what have you, do people call her Mary? no, what do they call it? Mrs. Well, there you go. So
Exactly.
what are we talking about here?
Exactly.
What are we talking about here?
Exactly.
And what do you call your mother? Do you call your mother by her first name, or do you call her mom?
No, sir. No,
No.
sir. No, sir. No, sir. Hey, Coach, you know that March is Women's History Month.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you if you could name in history or in your life a woman that has made an impact in your life.
Yeah. Well, besides all the women that I've actually in my family, I was always, even when I taught, people of color history to my classes, I always felt myself getting up for a classic one. That was Harriet Tubman. And that was basically because she was self-taught. A lot of the others, no disrespect, but they were poetry writers, or they were, I also tell you the truth though, I also got off on the white abolitionists.
Oh, yes.
Because I would look at them, I'm going, man, what character must you have had being a white woman in 1829 or 1823 and what have you, and you're risking your life and your family's life by hiding escaped slaves in your house.
I was just reading about some the slave reform laws, and I was reading that there were some abolitionists that actually broke some slaves out of the jail. What they would have to do is, once they went back to the states that were free states, tried to kind of bring them back to states that had slavery. They would have to kind of go before a judge, and sometimes abolitionists were big and bad enough, brave enough to actually break them out of that situation.
Well, I think one of the common cause, though, I always found too, and I kind of threw this into, a lot, even like the John Browns and even the white male abolitionists, a lot of them had a real strong religious background, and so slavery to them just didn't make sense. And because of their not only personal but their religious stock and all the ingredients that goes into that, they just were willing to live to risk their lives. I mean, John Brown, he not only did he die with his son.
We could talk about this. We could talk about this, but I kind of want to stay on the women.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because it's March, and actually, it's always good to talk about women. I like to say that real men love women.
Big time.
And I like to also say that I have many sisters, but one wife.
Yeah.
I really appreciate women, and actually I'm going to be doing something actually this month at Alvin's and Friends. I'm going to do something called Give It Up, where I just kind of do a live stream, and we're going to just kind of talk and extol women.
Alvin's a great guy. Alvin's a good guy.
Yeah. I mean, but it's important because I think they need to hear men support them and promote them, and say that, hey, we're partners in this. So no, I appreciate those examples. But Coach, you've been around. I mean, you've been around basketball for all your life. You've played at various different levels. You've coached at various different levels. I wanted to ask you, who was the baddest ball player you've ever seen?
Wow, tough
question. Matter of fact, who was the baddest ball player you played against?
Played against?
Yes, sir.
Wow, I would probably go back to, and it wouldn't even be against like anybody in school. I think I always look and say what was happening in my life that made me stick with ball and play on a serious level. And I would go back to probably when I was like maybe a freshman, sophomore in high school. It was just so lucky that the guys that I like I told you, like I had a park directly right across the street from me. Yeah. But that wasn't a park that I went to go to play ball. It was like maybe because I lived around like 163rd Street, I would have to go to 167th, 168th Street.
Sure.
And Morris High School, which is still in the Bronx, had a big backyard, and they had the basketball, and that's where me and my boys, we played ball. And I look back now, and some of them are still alive, man. We talk about that. We were some serious ball players.
Oh, sure.
We had to like get, and because it got boring playing each other every weekend, about every day, and so we would have to try to go into different neighborhoods and play other teams, and nobody wanted to play us. Because it wasn't like we were like in the 5th grade. We were like high school kids. So and so what started to happen, then we had to play with the men. And a lot of my mentors. As a matter of fact, I'll send you the link. One of my mentors is a man named Miles Deutsch, played for St. Anselm's, and he's still around, thank goodness. And he's they call him the mayor of the Bronx.
Got it.
He's a legendary guy, what have you. And I interviewed him because we always have a reunion.
Was he the baddest person you played against? Who was the baddest person you played against?
Okay, yeah, I kind of detoured. I'm going to say probably a guy named Butch Jenkins.
Butch Jenkins.
Yeah, Butch Jenkins. He was one of the group, and I just felt that every time we played pickup ball and what have you, he was like Magic Johnson.
Wow.
He must have been at that time. Butch must have been about maybe 6'3", 6'4", lanky. And the thing that was kind of sad, he was one of the guys that wasn't that well groomed academically. So when it came as we got older and started to go to high school, started playing high school ball, he wasn't playing high school ball because I guess I look back now and go, well, he wasn't playing because probably he didn't have any grades. And then when it came time to like, okay, after high school, who's going to college? He never went to college, and that's why the friendship, everything kind of drifted and faded. And then I found out I think he probably got hooked with drugs and stuff like that. And he died very early. But he was an awesome guy, and like one of those kind of guys where opportunity didn't hit him, and
No, I grew up in the Hollow, 361 Main Street, and I was fortunate enough to have people that I wanted to actually beat. So when you see Byron Kershaw and Rich Page and Benson Bracey and James Oliver and all these guys and Mr. Hunter, you look at them and it's like you work to like I'm a challenge you one day. I never got to really challenge them, but I say to all of them that I got a court in the backyard of the house so we can shoot some hoop. I don't know if we can play a game, but we can play horse or something like that now.
What's so funny though? I finally, after all these years, I just started to recently hook up with BK.
Okay.
He's actually doing. As a matter of fact, interesting talking about him. He's doing AAU now with
wonderful.
Youth. I think they're like 3rd graders, 4th graders.
Wonderful.
So that's his love right now. And
hey, Coach, that's my next question.
Yeah.
How do you feel when your players? You have a lot of former players.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when some of your former players are not doing so well?
Yeah, hurts to the core. Hurts to the core. As a matter of fact, I won't mention the name because I know this is being aired, but one of them I hadn't seen in a long time, and I started working out for the first time, maybe ever, because where I used to go when the COVID hit, they closed the park down. So I started going up to Lincoln Park.
Yeah.
And I would go up early Saturday morning, Sunday mornings, and do my stuff and do my my chai tea stuff and my basketball kicking and blah blah blah. And I started seeing this one particular player.
Yeah.
And I, right away you look at him and you can see he's not doing well. And myself and Jared Rice and a couple other guys, we started.
But we don't necessarily get into specific. I just wanted to kind of for you. I mean, because the next question, you said it hurts to the core. My next question is, how do you feel when some of your players former players are doing well.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
they're doing like well.
just like watching you now, you know, I I've kind of trained myself to expect it, because if I didn't expect it, like I told my guy in imagery, if I didn't expect it, it wouldn't go down. I'm not saying I'm not holding myself totally responsible, then, but talking to somebody like you and the other players that I see are, you know, successful and whatever we mean by successful, I'm not shocked anymore because that's the way it's supposed to be. You know, that's the way. So because in other words, if I sit here and go crazy like it wasn't supposed to happen, then I'm become victim of any type of prejudice or any type of stereotype. It's supposed to happen. I don't care where you lived at, and I don't care who. I don't care if you were raised by your grandmother, or you know your father was on drugs and he put his hands on your mother. I mean, okay, I understand that, but if I get trapped into thinking that because those things happen, you're going to be stuck, and I'm going to treat you like that, then no, I got to come at you on a higher level, man. And the expectation and the fact that you reference somebody like myself, but obviously all the other men and women that were adults that sometimes you got to sit down and think about, yeah, man, Reverend so and so, or this person, or this history teacher, or this other coach, man, that was hard on me, boy. I mean, I would go home, and then you look back now with adult eyes and go, wow, that's the reason why now I can sit here as Omar Small, and somebody was to press my pause button, given all of the things that have happened to me, good, bad, suffering, what have you. I still have the skills to not get intoxicated by it. I move on, and I see myself doing what I'm doing right now. And that's why because in other words, in order for you to be doing what you're doing, you had to have seen yourself in your mind's eye.
No. I definitely have done that. But the thing is that, you know, I recognize that I'm not here on my, you know, people help me to get here. People help me to be the person that I am. You know, Fifi Razor, who people wouldn't know if they didn't live in the neighborhood.
Right.
But you know, he cared. You know, and people that you know, used to actually, there was a couple of guys would you know, just take me out on a run.
Yeah.
You know, I used to run the stairs. I mean, BK and those guys and Rich Page, they used to, I used to be the third person. You know, they would run up the stairs, and I'd be the third person running up the stairs with them. So
that's missing now.
You know, we appreciate, and we kind of get to a point in life, and all I can say is that I'm thankful.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for you, Coach. I'm thankful for all the people that you know poured into my life and continue. And so my job is to pass it on. My job is
it's called recycling.
We're gonna be sustainable. That's right. That's right. We're gonna be real sustainable here. We're gonna keep cycling it around.
There you go.
No, that's it. No, you know, thank you so much for that, Coach. I wanted to ask you, what was your, I guess, personally and professionally, either or, your greatest accomplishment?
Oh, okay. My greatest accomplishment, you know, it's funny because I think I saw that question. I put it down real quickly because I said, man, I'm almost like not upset. I said, I wish I didn't see that question, because if he had just asked me, usually that's the kind of question where you want the first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
And because this is on your show, this is something that I would think most people don't know about Coach Harris. When I was back in college, I pledged a Kappa Alpha Psi, and the night that we went over, there was 4 of us and our dates, and we were in a serious car accident, to the point where I can't even tell you right now exactly what happened, because I don't know if there was a gas leak or whatever. Nobody seemed to have remembered. But anyway, we were on a serious car accident going up into Queens, and I actually had the last rites. I was aware, it's almost surreal talking about it right now. In other words, I'm laying there, the priest is over me, he's saying prayers, get ready, and the technicians and the, you know, ERs, what have you, they get ready with the sheet, and in my head, I'm screaming at them, that, wait a second, I see, I know what's going on. What are y'all doing? And my name is Nat Harris. I live, Tremont Avenue, blah, blah, blah. My mother's name is so-and-so, and, and it, and I also was aware of the accident in terms of a bird's eye view, because later on I started telling them, well, I saw the ambulance come, and I know that you mentioned, and they're like looking at me with spooky eyes, like, how did you know I said that? We were nowhere near the car. I said, yeah, well, you told the police officer. And they're like, look, even to this day, people, and so I would say that my greatest accomplishment, and that's why I seriously feel that, we have reasons and missions and what have you, that it's not fulfilled for me yet, because that particular frame of reference could have been it. Stage left, okay, next, it wasn't completed yet. Yeah. So surviving that. And then I guess what semicolon would be being a cancer survivor, going through a whole lot of tribulations that a lot of people don't know. I think that's why staying in shape has always been very important to me, because I'm like Frederick Douglass. I've had 9 major, again, on your show, you're going to get firsthand, uninterrupted news, man. This is like the first time. Most people don't know. I've had 9 major surgeries. I feel like I'm Frederick Douglass, because my claim to fame, again, through imagery, one of the steps, I give 10 steps when I give my lecture. And one of the steps is to project yourself to how you want to see yourself being. And one of the steps is that I want to show myself in a way that when I tell you that I've had 9 major surgeries, you're going to look at me with the look that you have in your face right now. Get on out of here, man. Ain't no way you're going to have 9 surgeries and still look halfway decent.
You look great.
I call it the Frederick Douglass, because when Frederick Douglass used to give speeches, people would look at him and go, man, ain't no way you were a slave. You speak too well, you're too mighty, you're too well dressed. And Frederick would have to lift up his shirt and show his whip marks. So for me, in order, you would look at me, coach, and you probably had a little 9, little simple, certain. No, if I showed you my latest surgery scar, you're going to go, what? And that's my claim. So that's like my badge of an accomplishment that, again, mission not complete, got more things to do. And I hold that dear to my heart, because I hear the stories and what have you, and things that are going on and stuff like that. And part of my thing is to want to tell everybody, like, wow, man, guess what? This is what happened. This is what I went through. Last June, I had major surgery, I had abdominal reconstruction, blah, 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 blah. And I go, you know what? If I kind of keep it a little secret and be very selective on when I tell the story and who I tell the story to, that's the discipline of being in the chi and being in focus right now, because it's not about the ego. It's about moving on and just surviving. And because once it becomes the ego, then you lose track. If I start bragging about it, which sometimes it may sound like, it's not about bragging. It's about just using it as a key to move on and go. Because I go, dang, I've gone through all this stuff, and yet I'm still here, and I'm having this talk with my boy Omar. So he and I both, man, we got unfinished business, man. We got we think we ain't finished.
And again, and there's a powerful experience, because you recognize that your experience is for you, but it's for someone else as well. And so and I live for that, in the sense that if something that I've experienced or been through can be impactful to someone else, and help someone else get to the next level, you want to give that all day, every day.
Sometimes you don't even realize it. Sometimes it could be on your job, or you saying something to somebody younger, or somebody and then you walk away from that person and never realize that it could be a facial expression, or it could be a one-word answer, or it could be no answer. Sometimes silence is more powerful than a whole lot of and you may never know. And it's, I don't know if it's that important for you to know, but sometimes not knowing is just as powerful as knowing, and what have you. And I like to think that there's a lot of people that you touched that you don't even realize that you touched.
No, it's powerful. It's powerful, and it's powerful because if there's a scripture that says God is not a respecter of person, meaning that if you implement the principle works. So you reap what you sow. If you go back to a farmer, or going back to, if you implement a principle, the principle will work. So for instance, and I had, I grew up in a housing complex.
Right.
My situation was not the same as everyone's situation.
Right.
When
Sure.
people close their doors, they have their own scenario.
Right.
My mom is amazing. She never, we were poor, but she never made us feel, and I never
poor.
felt
Yeah.
poor, right? And but the thing is that if someone followed, okay, Omar goes to school, comes back,
You're right.
or Omar goes to church every Sunday and comes back, or Omar, I've always wanted to actually have a style where people could, say, hey, look at me. I did it. God is not a respecter of person. If you apply yourself, if you listen, if you go listen to Coach Harris, or if you can get something out of it. And so that's what I think. I mean, we're supposed to be living. There's another scripture that says we're living epistles known and read. So we're living books. So even if you didn't hear me say anything, my presence alone and how I present myself is supposed to tell a story.
Big time. Right? And that's so true. 'Cause like I told you before, when I see you now, I just look at you. Sometimes, from a distance, I look at you and go, oh my. I remember one time somebody said, "Who's that, man?" I said, "That's Omar, man." And they say, "He looks so familiar." And I go, I just got to make a face, because I know. And my mom going, "Why are you asking?" Well, first of all, he's a cool looking brother, what have you. But I don't know if that's why you asking. You asking because he got like a presence. Yeah. There was like the way you greet somebody was the way you carry yourself. And it's unique, and yet, like you said, not to be taken for granted, because it's there. And like I said, it's not that important that
No, it's all good. Hey, Coach, we need to get together. Outside of this, obviously.
I'm staring at that basket back there.
Yeah, man, we need to shoot some baskets, man.
I hope that net. Well, if you have me come over, that can't be one of those cheap nets.
Nah.
You're gonna have to have a ladder to change that thing. It has to be one of those. I mean, I'll bring one over if you want me to, but it has to be a heavy duty net, and it has to be the kind of net that when the ball goes through.
Oh, look at him! He's already doing guided imagery. See, he's already doing guided imagery. All right, but I'm doing guided imagery too, because I'm gonna lock you down.
Oh Lord, have mercy! And then the alarm clock will go off, and you go, oh wow! I dreamt that I was holding down Coach Harris.
Oh gosh, no, this has been great. Hey, Thank Coach, before we go, is there anything you want to ask me, or anything you want to say before we?
I would, it's a good question. I would be very curious about any short-term, long-term goals for yourself. I know that you seem to have a cool path. It seems always to be, in a way where you're always serving people and what have you. And I know you're not done. And I'm just kind of curious, have you thought, of anything that you still would like to do?
Oh, sure. Thanks for asking that, Coach. Yeah. I just feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg. Quite honestly.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, it's the tip of the iceberg. You ain't done yet. And we're just getting started.
Yeah.
And we're getting started, and we're starting to broaden out and write books and different things like that. But I also, again, I want to be able to share. And so when you have more, you can do more.
Yeah.
And when you're in a certain place or station in life, you can have even that much more of an influence. So I just want to continue to help people. I want to continue to be a resource.
And that's going to happen for you very easily, because if you want to get what you got, you got to want what you got. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it's the old time expression of saying, like, if there's anything that you want to get, you got to appreciate what you have right now.
That's right.
And you are living, you just the way you talk, what have you, you're in contact with what you have right now, and you appreciate it. And that's always propels you to get what you want. You know what I'm saying? And I tell that to a lot of players a lot of times. You're complaining about, practices. You're complaining about so and so and so. You're not appreciating what you have right now.
That's right.
I mean, you went to Pace. Pace is a great facility. I'm going. It's one of the top facilities. It's better. I mean, that facility, that gym, and those locker rooms are better than you go down to Fordham, you go to Manhattan. I mean, it's better. And those are D1 programs. I mean, you got and you're complaining about practicing at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that's why you won't get to where you need to, what you want, because you don't want what you got. Right now, you're not appreciating.
You got to put in the work. You got to put in that work. Yes,
it's all good.
No, it's all good. And Coach, please give my regards to your lovely family.
Same thing, man.
And before we go, just tell people how they can kind of stay in touch with you. Is there anything that any contact information?
Great question. Yeah, I have my. It's funny, like you, my way of trying to stay in contact and do history and sometimes throw out little wise sayings and what have you and blah blah blah. I've kind of, I was fully into interviewing, and I. Going to have to probably do what you're doing right now, and that's doing it over, because right now, being wise and being safe and dealing with people in person, we're not really there yet, and or you might be ready to do it, but the person that you want to talk to may not be ready. So but I have my own website, coachnatharris.com.
Okay.
And I put out when you go onto the site, coachnatharris.com, when you go onto the site, there's a description of who I am, blah, blah, blah. And then in the blog section is a lot of the articles that sometimes you go all the way back to the beginning of it. I've done a lot.
No, there's some great, there's
a lot of writing articles that I've done. And
there's some great resources there on that website.
Yeah.
We'll have to kind of bring you back and talk about, some of the pitfalls of being a sports parent. And I mean, you got some really good stuff.
Yeah, I'm busy answering questions, and that's what I'm kind of doing right now with the recruiting process. A lot of parents are not educated. A lot of the high school coaches aren't really aware of, you have what's called a recruiting calendar. And there are certain times of the year that you got to be able to do.
You got to be on top of it.
I'm dealing with kids. You have what's called the eligibility center, where you have to call and they have to have all your stuff ready.
No,
a lot of these players are walking around and they're not registered, or they.
Hey, Coach, give them that website again.
Coach Nat, or one word, coachnatharris.com.
Awesome.
All right, and when you go on those sites, there are, especially in the beginning sections, I show calendars and any kid that's interested in being recruited. There's mistakes that parents make. Being a parent of a student athlete. I mean, it's all
there's so much. There's so much, America. Definitely check out Coach. And Coach, you'll be getting an invitation here. We gotta,
Like I said, I'm looking at that, man.
We can do a game of horse. All right.
All right. I mean, I wasn't planning on coming to somebody's summer camp. We're going to play some ball, but that's okay. I understand where you're coming from. You got your family.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
No, I really appreciate it.
To be continued, my brother.
Yes, sir. Have a good
one. All
right,
be good.
Yes,
Take care.
Informs, uplifts, and elevates, and inspires, takes you higher.